The Pistons' new look rotation dismantles the Bucks for their 19th win of the year. We'll break it all down in just a moment. Welcome back to the Pistons Jack YouTube channel. On today's episode, we're going to recap and go through the Pistons' big W at home against the Bucks. They win this one 124-112, and this was a much better performance than the one we saw earlier this week in Milwaukee, where the Pistons dropped arguably their worst game of the season to the Bucks, who pretty much didn't have Giannis for most of the night. But the Detroit get their second straight win. They close out a home back-to-back with a pair of W's in the best way possible, and they head now into at least a 5-day break, I believe they have, while the NBA Cup Finals are on this week in Las Vegas. Detroit, I don't think, plays until next Saturday, potentially, against the Hawks. So they have a nice break here. So awesome to go into this break on a high. Back-to-back wins at home. Look, they should have won both these games. The Portland game was much closer than I think we probably would have liked, but ultimately, not every game can be perfect. But to come out tonight against the Bucks, after a shaky-ish game yesterday and a bit of a bad game earlier in the week against the Bucks, for them to come out and absolutely dismantle this team, particularly in the second half, was just so refreshing. And the first thing for me was this team has won the most single-digit games in the NBA. I think after yesterday's game, they've won 11 of their 19 games in single digits, which, as I just said, the most in the NBA. So to have a game tonight where they led by as many as 25, I want to say, in the fourth, they were up by 15 plus for the most of the third. It was just really nice. And the final score, as you can see, only says 12 points. But by the time the Pistons had checked out their starters and brought in Sasser, Danis, and the end of the bench guys, it was like a 20-point ball game. So obviously you'd like to see them keep the lead around 20, but it was a bunch of guys out there, particularly for the Bucks, who were just out there trying to get stats, and, you know, kudos to them. Like, they're trying to make a living in the NBA, so they were trying really hard. The Pistons probably took the foot off the gas, but regardless, nice cruise control victory. And Detroit, like I said, really came out in the third after they had like a 10-point lead in the second, and that evaporated because Kevin Porter Jr. was just on fire. He was good against the Pistons in their win earlier in the week, but he had 32 on the night. I feel like he nearly had 20 at halftime. He couldn't miss. He had 7 threes. He kind of helped close the gap to only a 5-point margin, I think, at halftime, or maybe it was 6. So it was a bit closer than it should have been. They let slip there to close the half, but the player I want to actually start with in this one, there's a lot of great contributors, but because I said this last time in terms of the Pistons' energy overall, I feel like it just starts every game in the start of the third quarter. The energy of this team, I truly believe, goes with Jalen Duren and Cade Cunningham. If they come out, ideally both of them, but if just one of them starts the game, whether it's JD with putback dunks, just flexing, screaming, getting the crowd into it, particularly when they're at home, like if he's just out there being physical, that really sets a tone. Or on the flip side, if it's Cade coming out and, you know, scoring 7 points in the first 2 minutes, or finding guys, and he's just been really aggressive and not shying away or being a little bit passive like he can be at times, I think it's just a different team and a different tone is set. And I thought in that third quarter, it was Jalen Duren who came out immediately. I think he had 2 points at halftime. In the third quarter alone, I think he scored 10. He finished with a big-time double-double, 16 points, 16 rebounds. Had a big block in the third quarter as well. Had a almost team-high plus 27. Funnily enough, Cade had the highest at plus 28. But I thought Jalen Duren, to start that third quarter and throughout that whole third quarter as the Pistons built kind of their game-winning lead, I thought he had an excellent quarter. And overall, I feel like he's kind of been plateauing and slightly just dropping off from his all-star pace in the past week. So it was really good to see him have a really impactful second half. And in the quarter that won the Pistons the game, I thought he was the guy who kind of set the tone. So shout out to JD there. Would love to see him start the next game like that, but nonetheless, I thought he was excellent. And 6 of 8 from the field, 4 of 5 from the line. Good stuff from him. I think the player of the game for me was Isaiah Stewart. just like he started at the 4 tonight. He had 19 points, hit 3 threes, had a block where it looked like he might have injured his knee, but it turns out they just knocked knees, him and Kevin Porter Jr. So he should be all good now, especially with a 5-day break. But I thought he was the player of the game for me because I love Tobias, but one of the things I've cited is how good him and Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren have been together this season on the floor. And it can look a bit clunky at times on offense, especially when Asar's out there. But when Stu's hitting corner threes like he is tonight, I really believe. I'm not know if I'm going to say right now he's the starting 4 of the future. Maybe he needs to prove it a little bit more from 3. Like, I think he's a great shooter, but just, do this for the rest of the season. But I love the double big look of him and Jalen together. And obviously he was forced to start tonight because Tobias wasn't out there. But the starting lineup of Duncan, Stu, JD, Cade, and Asar, like I said, it's not the most clean, beautiful offense, but there's lots of benefits to it at both ends of the floor, especially if Stu's hitting 3. There's lots of size. You've got the rebounding advantage, or you should, rim protection, and you're just massive. And I thought Asar had one of his best games in a while as well. But I thought Stu played a really good game. And the rotation overall is probably what I want to talk about for a minute before we dive back into some players. But it was really interesting tonight. Dennis was cut out of the rotation tonight. Tobias didn't play, so that opened up some minutes for Javonte Green. But the real 10-man rotation the Pistons ran with was the starters who I just read out, and then off the bench they had Ivy as the first guard. Well, I guess Karras and Ivy as the first guards, and then they went Javonte, Ron, and B-Ball Paul. And that was kind of the 10-man rotation. Sasa, Chaz, and Dennis got in at the end, but that was the 10-man crew they went with tonight. Obviously, no Tobias. He's clearly going to be a part of the rotation when he's healthy. But I did really like what I saw from that starting group in terms of the results, even if on offense sometimes, like I said, bit clunky. They're really good, whether it's Stu being able to finish around the rim now through some traffic or it's JD on the glass. I thought Asar tonight, in terms of his passing, was just excellent. He had 13, 8 assists, 6 or 7 field goals. And I just thought he looked exceptional at getting into the paint, kicking it out, and making plays. Like, he was the other guy in the third, I thought, that was just picking apart the Bucks. He had a nice dime to Cade, who backdoor cut on Kevin Porter Jr. I feel like I mentioned his name a lot. And Cade was able to finish it. It was just really well-timed pass. But when Asar's creating like that and taking the load off Cade a little bit, as well as you mix in, you've always got the shooting of Duncan. Even if tonight he's 1 of 6 and in foul trouble, just having him out there, we know how impactful that is. And then Stu and JD, when they're doing their thing on the interior, Stu's knocking threes. Love the versatility of that starting group. And then you're also able to get B-Ball Paul into the rotation. Now, maybe B-Ball Paul and Javonte, their minutes are obviously less if Tobias is playing. But B-Ball Paul, I don't know. Whenever the team didn't really struggle with energy too much tonight, but he's just such a monster at making plays. And what I mean by that is, tonight it was rebounds, 10 in 15 minutes. But there'll be other nights where he'll have 3 steals and a block, or 2 blocks and a steal in limited minutes, and he just makes plays. So I think even though he's a minus 15 tonight, there's something about him that I really enjoy. Him just being able to come in and make plays. I feel like he makes things happen. Now, maybe if Tobias is healthy, he probably doesn't play as much, and Stu's your backup 5 instead of playing all minutes at the 4. But it was nice to see him get some minutes. I thought Ron didn't hit a field goal tonight, but he was solid for the most part. Did his thing on defense, and then Javonte was exceptional. 13 points in 17 minutes. He had his own cameo where I think he had 8 points in a row for the team. And yeah, he's just been a joy as well. That's probably his best game in a while since the rotation's been mixed up in the past 2 weeks. So things just seemed really aligned tonight. Players seem really confident in their roles. And Jaden Ivey in particular, 16 minutes. So still around that minutes restriction of 14, I think the number is, but 10 points, 3 of 3 from deep, hit a pair of back-to-back threes to start the fourth, which put the Pistons up 16. The thing for me right now with Jaden is while he's still trying to figure out, get his burst back, get his confidence back with driving and finishing and his overall just decision making in traffic, as long as he's knocking down his threes, like at a high 30% clip to 40%, I think you are going to be able to get him into the rotation and have positive results. If he can't hit threes, that's where I think it's going to look really, it's going to be uncomfortable to like reintegrate him as much as they still need to do it no matter what. And I know this is a very basic thing, but it's just something I'm watching for with him as he reintegrates back into the team is if he's knocking down threes, whether it's 3 of 3 tonight or 2 of 5 or 6, like I'm good with that. And then just keep trying to figure out your drives, your pacing, the playmaking, especially while he's playing less than like 18 minutes a game. It's very hard to play limited minutes for a guy like JI who's used to playing big minutes and being able to ease into the game in his own routine. It's hard to reintegrate and play make and find a real rhythm because I think you need rhythm when you're, running an offense, trying to tell guys where to go, or just, trying to be on ball. And I think if he can just knock down threes, he's going to be a positive on this team no matter what stage of his reintegration he's at. So one of his best games tonight for sure in a limited role. But I think we've covered it. I really like the rotations tonight. I thought JB did a great job. As much as Giannis has been awesome, he has tailed off recently. So I think, whilst I don't think this means Giannis isn't still going to be the backup point guard of the future potentially, I think it's fine to, cut him out of the rotation tonight, lean into a bit more Jaden Ivey, a bit more Karis LeVert, and even give a couple of those minutes to the likes of Javonte Green. And I think Asar would have played 30 minutes tonight if the Pistons didn't blow out the Bucks. I think most of the team checked out at around the 3-minute mark. So, and Asar, if this game's a little bit closer, he definitely plays 30, which is what we all want him to see. We don't want him to see him around that 24-minute mark. So if Asar getting 3 to 4 extra minutes means Giannis has to lose a couple and that's some more on-ball possessions for Asar, then I'm all in favour for it, especially when Asar's playing like that tonight. So I like the new look rotation. Once again, it will change again when Tobias is back, but it's just something to monitor. I think JB's constantly trying to figure it out himself, and I understand we all want this thing to be perfect, but he's got to manage egos. Not that I think anyone has bad egos, but he's got to manage egos, confidence of players, and try and find them all a perfect role on a team that's winning this many games. So awesome win tonight. Nice to just sit back and relax for most of that second half. I know I enjoyed it. I hope you did. Let me know your thoughts and comments below. But thank you so much for watching. And as always, go Pistons.